All right, thanks for joining us today. My name is Dan Meyer, Editor-in-Chief here at RCR Wireless News, and today I'm joined by our Managing Editor, Sean Kinney, who's the man on the street in Mobile World Congress in Barcelona, to get some insight on the show. So, hey, Sean, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, man, my pleasure. It's man on the street, man in the convention center. I'm certainly getting my steps in today.
That's for sure. Well, yeah, I guess so. I know, again, you've been there for the whole event. Maybe what's been your general view, just kind of overview of kind of what's been kind of the big themes.
Well, I'll tell you, Dan, last year the big themes were 5G and IoT. Much more of a hype cycle, though. This year, same themes, but much more realistic perspective on it. Relative to 5G, we're seeing some great definition of the use cases and really more of an emphasis on the standardization work that's still going on. And really what's been sticking out to me the most is there's almost as much emphasis on gigabit LTE, adopting a lot of these LTE advanced pro technologies to really bridge the LTE to 5G transition. And I think it's finally kind of sunk in for the industry. I mean, obviously the vendor view is always a lot rosier than the carrier view, but LTE's got a 20-30 year runway on it. I mean, it's going to coexist with 5G for a very long time and really facilitate like a commercial rollout and also a consistent user experience as you move away from a hotspot.
Yeah, that's a good point. It does seem like you said, that gigabit LTE thing has been big. I know you were at the Sprint event there at the show, and I know they talked a lot about it there. And again, having Sprint, which is, one of the, not a small carrier, but not one of the big guys in terms of the world scene of things, but having them kind of talk a lot about their plans seemed like it kind of showed that was, like you said, kind of a big part of what's happening out there. So it's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, they're really focused on 2.5. It's got a lot of advantageous propagation characteristics, whereas when you start talking about millimeter wave, I mean, on a cell phone, if you move like this, you've just destroyed your connection. So, I mean, I think mobile 5G we're still way away from that, which, I mean, to kind of segue a little bit, we have seen a lot of emphasis on millimeter wave fixed wireless access 5G and like 28, 30 gigahertz as a way to kind of, I don't even know if it solved the last mile problem or like solved the last 200 foot problem. But I really think for, MDUs and some other potential areas, you'll see a lot of traction around that. It's evidenced by a lot of these trial stories that we've been covering from Verizon, AT&T, and some of their vendor partners.
Yeah. Well, I guess in terms of the show itself, I mean, again, I know it's hard to really, going to the show myself several times, it's hard to really get a picture of the event because it is so large. I guess, does the show this year seem to be pretty well attended? What's been your general opinion? I guess the attendance of the show and kind of, that are there, whether it's operators or vendors, pretty good participation for the event this year, do you think?
Oh yeah, the participation's off the charts. I think yesterday was probably the peak attendance today. It's going to slip off a little bit tomorrow, which will be nice. We can maybe check out some of the smaller companies, some of the startups that we don't have much of a relationship with. But yeah, I mean, very well attended. And, it looks like there's a lot of excitement around the MWC Americas event, which, as you know, is a kickoff event that's sort of taken in the CTIA and trying to rebrand that. So that'll be interesting to see how that develops out in San Francisco. But, to touch on a couple more of the big themes, IoT, it's gotten a lot more narrowly focused on the security piece, which I think over the past year we've seen some really impactful DDoS attacks and things like this based on compromised IP-connected devices. So I think it's really started to sink in with the vendors that as they approach, particularly an enterprise client as well as the carriers in their sales cycle, I think security is about the first thing that comes up. And so the next challenge is going to be how do you approach that market education and make someone understand that, obviously you expect some level of basic security, but you might need something a lot more predictive rather than reactive to really secure your business. So I think we're going to see a lot more emphasis on the security piece of IoT going forward.
Yeah. And then, I guess that kind of plays into what you were saying earlier about the fact that this year is a lot more real world scenarios for these things. It's just, these kind of theories on what it's all going to be about. So.
Yeah, I mean, last year was a 5G party. This year it's a wait a minute party.
It's always good to have that as well. But the long party involved all really matters. So.
That's it. We can talk about one of your favorite topics, virtual reality. That's obviously everywhere here. But just to to get back away from that hype cycle and into the nuts and bolts of it, there's this realization that to really achieve an immersive virtual reality experience in your home, you're really going to have to push processing and push compute out to the edge of your network and really rely on a distributed network architectural model. And the capacity aspect of that is maybe slightly less important than the latency aspect of that, because when you're talking about VR, if you not have that really low latency, that's when people start to get sick and get headaches. And that's never going to help any kind of commercial deployment of that. So, maybe a big opportunity for MSOs who are already in your home. So it could be interesting.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I feel it'll play that, but obviously it's always good to kind of keep some reality on all this stuff as well too. So that's good to hear. But yeah, Dave, Sean, we definitely appreciate the insight. Obviously, it's always good to get kind of the view of the so we appreciate that insight, and safe travels back. And we'll talk to you again later.
Thanks a lot, Dan.
All right.